How's it going, YouTube? Coming today with another video, and today, guys, what to bring to you is how to deck build, how to theory, and then how I went from my first list to my sixth list for YCS Minnesota. I do appreciate all of your patience with me. I've been very sick these past couple days, and then whenever there is a few events that are coming up, I usually post a little less just so I can have enough time to prep on DB and talking with my testing group about exactly where my list needs to be, and then really being able to get in those hours that you need before the events to make sure that you are prepped and ready. So if there are a lot of events coming up and then I start posting a little less, I do apologize about that, but the schedule will resume as normal after those events are over. I just really need to be able to balance posting on YouTube and then prepping for events as well, because one of these events we're getting that top and it's going to feel amazing. So I am ready for that, and I really do love that I have all of you on my journey there, and I'm going to be helping everyone as much as I can on the journey there. So this video is going to be no different though. We're going to talk a lot about different theories behind every list that I went through. Again, we went through about 6 different Tearlament lists before we found the one that we went with, and I think that's going to be really interesting to talk about. So if you haven't already checked my sponsors over at Imperium Duelist, Dragon Shield, or Gem, definitely go down in the description below, check them all out. Without further ado, let's hop right on into the video. So the first thing I want to say is happy birthday, Cody Angeloff. It was his birthday over the weekend. It was a lot of fun to hang out. And then also congrats on your top. That's, again, just a really cool thing to be able to see your friends on the future matches, and especially Cody making all the way to top 4. Congratulations to you. Really nice job this weekend. I tried vlogging for my first time, and honestly, I'm not going to include the clips on here because the clips weren't that great. It was more so me really just getting used to using a camera like that because I didn't really know about lighting and what have you. So it got better as we went through the day, but a lot of the clips were like too bright to post, or they were just like not long enough, or the clips weren't like great together. So I definitely learned a lot, especially using that software, and I thought that it was a lot of fun, and this is going to really be able to allow me to vlog in the future, just because I was able to learn how to adjust a camera on the go, how to use manual not automatic for the lighting. There's a lot that I really needed to learn, and I thought this was a really cool experience to be able to get a lot of that information. But I do want to hop right on into my first list here, and that's going to be talking more so about the Branded and High Spirits package. If you're not familiar, there is a combo with Branded and High Spirits. So essentially what it is, you activate Branded and High Spirits, you dump a name, and then you dump Rukalos, and you add the Cartesia. The name will then make the Kit Kalos. The Kit Kalos will add the Rhino. You'll normal summon the Cartesia, you'll use Kit effect, then chain the Cartesia. You'll send the Kit and the Rhino, you'll summon out your Rukalos, and then you use the effect of the Kit Chainlink 1 to resummon the Rhino Heart. And there you can go ahead and use the effect of Rhino Heart Chainlink 1, Kit Chainlink 2, make a Garura, and then you can use the Garura and the Cartesia to make the Baron. You get a draw, and then if you send an additional name, you can then go ahead and make the other fusion into a Mud Dragon, so your board at that point will be Rukalos, Dweller, and Baron. It's very strong, and it's something that I definitely recommend looking into, and this is exactly where we started off. So when we saw Snow get banned, I was still really heavy on Dangers. I thought that they were still very good, so we kind of just played everything, and it still managed to be about 41 cards, playing the Albion and not the Cartesia at the time. This will be updated very soon. And so playing the Bestial cards, of course, these are the cards that everyone was talking about. I was like, we got to include them. So we were playing the Bestial Danger tier. And then in the side, we have the Fenrirs, the Lightning Storms. So the Lightning Storms was actually something that got changed out really quick. And that's because I was at locals before we were even testing for like this format. It was still last format. And I had Lightning Storm in my hand and I had a Havness. And I was like, this Lightning Storm is now out of my deck, because I was saying to myself, like, there's not a single time where I'm never activating the Havness and just waiting on a Lightning Storm. That's just not happening. I'm always using the Havness immediately. So in my opinion, having the Lightning Storm in the deck was literally one of the worst ideas ever, and that card got cut almost immediately. As soon as that locals was over, the Lightning Storm was out of my side deck. So that was something that was definitely very prominent. And then having the Dangers in there, I was kind of questioning it because the Dangers were really good, but I was also thinking about like maybe if we play more hand traps or if we play more like defensive cards. So it got me thinking a little bit, and so I decided on this kind of a list where I changed the Albion to a Cartesia. I started playing the Serpent. I had the Galaxy in there. I brought back Desires. We still had the Bestials and the Dangers, which I thought was fine. I didn't include hand traps yet. I just optimized the list a little bit more. Citing the Gammas, this was really important for me because I really wanted to make sure that I just didn't lose to Dweller. Citing the Imperms as well, I was going to side things like Droplet, but I felt like Imperm was just better, especially against the mirror match. Being able to Imperm on a kit was kind of crazy, And then again, just using Gamma was so nice. So there's a couple different things here that I was definitely worried about, especially like a Bell or a Crow, my first name from Brandon High Spirits. And that's again where the Gamma would come up, or even things like Dimension Shifter when you activate like Shiren in your hand. So there's a couple different changes that I made in this list just to make sure that it was a little bit more optimized. But then we got to really thinking, and we got to list 3. So list 3 includes 9 Bestials, and so this was definitely interesting. We also cut down the danger package to just 3 Nessie and 1 Jackalope. Now I thought this was really cool because Nessies are essentially just pseudo tier names because they're just dark and aqua. So at that point, it's really important to have those in your grave as well, so you don't have to get rid of like your other names. And I thought this was really cool too, because like let's say you had to shuffle back another name, the only other name in the grave was like a Merly, and you really want that Merly to stay in grave. So having like a Nessie as an option is definitely really cool. So I definitely like having just the 3-1. It was kind of awkward sometimes if you didn't have a name to search with a Nessie, but we'll talk about how I made that change later on. But having the 3-1 package was honestly really cool. So I took a list similar to this to locals before we got Dabble cards, and so it was still just like previous format. But I didn't play Brandon High Spirits, and I just played 3 Nessie and 1 Jackalope, and I went undefeated because I felt like the engine was so solid. Even if you don't really use the dangers and you're just milling out your deck to go ahead and try to hit names, getting those extra names in the grave, those Nessies, even a Jackalope for the occasional Mudragon, was really nice, honestly, and it's something that I wanted to incorporate in my final list in some way, shape, or form. We also are on the Beatrice as well, of course, because we're playing so many bestial monsters in this list. But we'll see how that changes over the course of time here. So now we're going to get into list 4. So list 4 is definitely going to look a little different now because we've added in quite a few different cards. We added in the Crows because I felt like Brandon High Spirits was going to end up being one of the most prominent cards in the event. And so the only way to be able to really counter that is having Crows or Bells. Crowing the first name from Brandon High Spirits essentially puts your opponent on 3 playable cards, and then also searching that Cartesia, which means that essentially a lot of times your opponent would just pass, which is pretty crazy. Crow on the Brandon High Spirits target was honestly just one of the craziest things I could think about for the event. Droplet felt really nice, so you can go ahead and shut down things like Dweller. Having the Dino-Miscus for the Mystic Mine out, and then also being able to banish like a Fusion was also pretty good. Still having those Bestial cards, but we're cutting down on them a little bit. Now we're just playing 3 and 2. I thought that was just fine though, because I really didn't want to have those cards if a lot of the people were going to be on like Brandon High Spirits. Because if you don't know, the Bestials are not quick effects unless your opponent controls a monster, so using Brandon High Spirits inherently plays around them. Also in the sideboard, we are now on Evenly Matched. I thought this card was really cool. Honestly, in the weekend, this card was the worst card in my side deck, but at the same point, at the time, it felt like it was really clean. Still having that as an option though to go ahead and like clear a board, I felt like there was just honestly better ways I could have been clearing boards. Also, Droll and Lockbird didn't really come up for me at all for the weekend, which is also just unfortunate because in theory it's a very good card against a lot of different decks, but for me in my matchups it just never really came up. But now we get into list 5, and so list 5 is when we're really getting optimized here, because again, there's like 6 lists here, we're already on list 5. So list 5 was actually one that I really enjoyed. So this one was 3 Bell, 3 Crow, and then we were on 2 Scream. I wanted to run 3, I really wanted to run 3, but I ran 2 because there's just other cards that I really wanted to run. I wanted to stay closer to 40 because I really wanted to be able to draw my power cards more often, and so this is something where I really had to make some concessions. So putting Scream back down to 2 was definitely something that I didn't want to do, but it's something that I did do. Then main decking Crime was also really cool because as long as your end board was Dweller Crime, I felt like you just never really lost that game. It was round 2, and my end board was Field Spell, Havness in Hand, Elf, Dweller, Rukalos, Face Up Scream, set Solic, Crime, double Imperm. It was gross. It was so gross, and it was something where my opponent just really couldn't do much about it. And like just having Crime turn 1 with a Dweller is kind of insane. It's just something where your opponent just really can't do anything about it. Big shout outs to Cody Angela for this one too. So this is the reason why I ended up dropping Droplet and then I went to Dark Ruler, is because most end boards were just on Dweller and Crime anyway. So if you were to use Droplet and you didn't send a trap, which most players weren't, then Crime could just stop the Droplet and it never mattered. You waste a lot of resources. So this is where Cody was like, just play Dark Ruler. And so this inevitably just gets cut from my list, which I thought was really smart. Other than that though, we are still on Super Poly. The card is still very good. And this is something that I was definitely thinking about, where I was like, maybe we don't need it, but it did come up a lot for me this weekend. So very good card, very good card. But talking more so about my final list, you'll see that we made a drastic change last second. And that's because we ended up cutting the Brandon High Spirits package and we went back to the Dangers, the 3 Nessie, 1 Jackalope, but now we're on 1 Bigfoot. So I thought this is really cool though, and just really getting rid of the Bestial cards. That's probably the biggest thing that you see right here, and that's because the Bestial cards I didn't really think were going to be that great, especially again if a lot of people were on Brandon High Spirits. That was the notion going into the event, that a lot of people would be on that. Not a lot were when we actually got there, unfortunately, but I still made the list combo-centric enough. And this is also very close to Cody's list because me and him were talking a lot about the list as well. So you do see like the Bahamut Shark, the Toad, the Serpent. And so this is kind of like how theory goes though, right? Sometimes theory goes full circle and then you start really thinking about the choices that you made at the beginning and start thinking about, well, why did I make those choices and why did they change? And then you got to think about like, did my theory in the middle of testing become just kind of clouded and I thought too heavy on one thing? And then you really just compare all of your list and you end up getting down to one final product. And you really just got to think, is this going to be the list that's going to take me to the top? And so for me, I thought that the list was really effective. Again, just having the Gambas on the side, having the Ashes on the side was actually really cool. It was really nice. It's something that Ash actually came up quite a bit. And playing against like the adventure package too, and then having the Ashes ready to go was actually really insane. And just playing against like more rogue decks or like Fluenderies, like it was just nice to have more defensive cards against those decks. Usually you don't want hand traps whenever you're playing Dangers, so I ended up cutting the Crows and the Bells. Kept the Impermanent because of course you can just set it, but I think I would have been better off playing Bell as well. Bell was specifically also just for the Fountain. When they go Fountain Shuffle back, then you can go ahead and Bell it. There is a way to chain block it, but at the same point, most times you're just going to go ahead and Bell the Fountain, and then your opponent's like really down on card advantage. And that's why we main decked 2 of the Cosmic Cyclone, sided a Cosmic Cyclone and a Heartbeat, because I just wanted to have 1 of 4 cards that allowed me to just open it turn 1 and then be able to say like, okay, when it's my turn, my opponent has Fountain on board, you immediately out the Fountain and then the board becomes way less scary to deal with. So for me, I thought that was really important. Still made in Crime 2 of the Solic and then 2 Scream. I thought the deck overall was just very consistent, and this is something that I was very happy to sign up with. Moving forward, we're going to make some modifications too, especially with the new Ishizu cards coming out. Those cards are insane. Those cards are so good, and that's where we're really going to have to figure out what the list is with those as well. So I do hope that you enjoyed this video today so I can kind of break down my thought process as far as what kind of cards I played and why I played them, because there's a lot of different things to think about whenever you're going to a bigger event, because you really want to make sure that your list makes sense. You want to make sure that if anyone asks you about any single card in your deck, that you have a really solid reason to tell them why you're playing it. Because if you don't know why you're playing certain cards, then why are you playing those cards? That's just as simple as it gets. If you have really good theory, then use that theory. Tell people why you made the deck like that. And that's something where if your theory is incorrect for whatever reason, let's say that there was other theory that was out there that said that something else was better, then you can have your line of theory that you can tell someone, and then somebody else can tell you their line of theory, and then together you can make an even better theory. So that's why I really like it too. And having a bigger testing circle is really nice too, just because at that point you get a lot of different viewpoints. As you can see, there's a lot of people that I was talking to that were really big on like Brandon High Spirits. There's also a lot of people that were really big on just like no Brandon High Spirits, just play like Dangers. And then there's a lot of people that are really big on playing Bestials and not Bestials. So there's reasons for every single one of them, but you really got to make the call at the end of the day on like what kind of a list that you want to play for the event. And I think that that's something that you have to determine and get better at every single time that you go to that event. But I do hope that you enjoyed today's video, and if you did, definitely go on my Discord, Twitch, Twitter, or Instagram. And if you want a coaching session over Metafy, definitely go ahead and PM me on Discord if you have any questions. And I hope that you all have a great day, and I'll catch you all in the next video. Thank you.